Alright, next let's work on the pants and the boots. So let's come to our pants layer, and we're going to create a new clipping mask. We'll drag that above our color layer. Then let's select this color. Now let's find a shadow for it. It's best to go darker because you can always bring down the opacity on your shadow. Hit OK. Now let's brush in those shadows. Right here, I'm just adding the shadows for the kneecaps. Great. Now, let's bring down the opacity on those shadows. I think about there looks good. Next, let's add an extra dark shadow right here on this ledge between the shirt and the pants. The way we'll do that is by coming over to our shadow layer and selecting its shape by holding down Control or Command and then hitting the thumbnail. Next, we're going to create a new clipping layer, and we want to make sure it's above our shadow layer. Then we're going to use our color picker to select this shadow blue, and then we're going to darken that even more. About there should be good. Now make sure you're on a soft edged brush, and we're going to paint in a line right about there. Awesome. Now we can unselect out of that shape. Looking pretty good. Now let's label these layers. So we'll call this layer shadow. We'll call the next layer shadow. And we'll call this last layer color. Now we can close that folder. Now let's work on our boots. So let's create a new clipping mask, and let's bring it to the very top of our layers. Now we'll select our boot color. We'll create a shadow color for it. Hit OK. And now let's brush that in. Make sure we switch back over to a hard-edged brush. And now we can paint in those shadows. So I just go ahead and I erase away the areas that I don't want. Sometimes the best way to learn is to just watch somebody do it. Great. Now let's turn down the opacity on this shadow. I think that looks good. And now we're going to do the same thing we did with the shadow from our shirt. So let's select this shape. Next, let's add a new clipping layer and bring it above our shadow. Then we'll select this color. We'll bring down the darkness. Then switch over to a soft brush. And then we'll paint in that undershadow. Great. Now we can unselect out of that shape. Now as you can see, it got up here on the top part of the boot, which we don't want it there. So using our erase tool, we'll just erase that out. Now let's add some highlights. So we'll select our boot color. Then we're going to lighten that. Next, let's add a new clipping mask and bring it above our shadow layer. Make sure that you switch back to a hard-edged brush. And I'm going to add a highlight right here on the top of the boot, this little lip. I'm also going to add a highlight right here on this top of the boot. Then let's not forget to label our layers. So we'll call this first one highlight. We'll call this next one shadow. We'll call the next one shadow. And then we'll call this last one color. Great. Now we can close that folder.